Welcome to the Heal Yourself podcast, where we dive deep into all things healing. I'm Denise, a speech language pathologist and a self-love coach for adults and teens.
And I'm Kira, a traditional naturopath and functional nutritionist, and we're here to guide you through the transformative process of healing your body, mind, and soul.
From the latest in functional medicine to nurturing your relationship with yourself, healing trauma, and even transforming your money story, we're here to empower you with the knowledge and tools to create lasting change.
So whether you're looking to heal physically, emotionally, or spiritually, join us as we explore the many paths to wholeness and wellness. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Heal Yourself podcast. You have Kira today. Denise could not join us, but I am here with my special guest. We'll call her special guest, Viktoria Levenberg. Victoria, welcome.
Hello, thank you so much for having me, Kira. It's an honor and a privilege. And while Denise isn't here, hopefully I'll be able to keep your guests entertained in her absence.
For sure, for sure. And guys, I was a guest on Victoria's podcast too, so we've already had the pleasure of meeting. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Tell our listeners, who are you? Why should they care? What makes you special?
Well, it makes me special, except for the fact that my parents told me I was.
Yeah, right.
No, actually they didn't, but we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. Okay, hi everyone. So my name is Victoria, or most people call me Vic, and I am a third culture kid from all over the world. I currently live in magical Aotearoa, New Zealand, which is just down under. Many places leave it off the map. And why you should care about what I have to say is I've gone through what probably many of you are going through. It's, I've been a classic high achiever for such a big part of my life, chasing the next big role, the promotion, the award, the best grades, all the things, you name it. And unfortunately, because of my high achiever tendencies, of course, that then was a slippery slope down to Burnoutville. And, not having all the tools that I have in my toolkit now, of course, that manifested as a massive, severe skin rash that no doctor could diagnose, no one could pinpoint. And through my own exploration, plus a lot of the mentors that I was lucky enough to come across, I managed to realize that it was all stress. It was all overwork. It was pretty much, what would be labeled as burnout without the official diagnosis, because it's still
How do you diagnose burnout?
How do you diagnose it? Like no one, and everyone's like so scared of the word, and no one really knows, it's like there's so much stigma and shame around it. And so the cliff notes of it is I took everything that I learned in my own experience and obsessed with health and well-being. And I've always been super productive, and I've always been like a master in organization, efficiency, and planning. But of course, that was so heavily dominated by my masculine achiever side that when not kept in check, that's where the burnout kicks in. And through my healing journey, I managed to also weave in the feminine pieces and discovered some incredible strategies that are not taught. Like you won't find them in the books and the productivity courses, all those things. And now I bring those two worlds together to truly help high performers just like myself thrive, get more done in less time, but without the sacrifice of their health, their well-being, and their energy. So basically call it productivity, but different.
Yeah. And this is so important because I think people hear high achiever and they're like, oh, I don't think that's me because I'm not earning 6-7 figures. I'm not, XYZ. I'm like, but look in the mirror. So many women are high achievers, but just have a specific lens looking into it. And it's like type A personality, perfectionist. Yeah. Like there's so many ding, 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 start checking them off. There's a lot of women listening that are high achievers. They just don't know.
Exactly. And I would also agree with you on the fact that like being a high achiever has nothing to do with the results that you get. Yes, high achievers generally tend to achieve higher results by nature. And unfortunately, there's also so many high achievers who I see and work with who are grinding, and it's like they are revving the engine of a car that's got their handbrake on park mode. And so sometimes that's the problem, is that superpowers that come with being someone who's really driven and really motivated. They're out of control. They're just running on empty. And that's part of the solution that I had to figure out the hard way.
Yeah, yeah, I feel you on that one. So you mentioned feminine and masculine energy, which I'm familiar with, and I know we had a guest talk about this, but it's been a long time. Can you give our listeners a refresher? Because people hear feminine and masculine and they're like, I don't get it. Like, I'm a female, I have feminine energy. And so many of us are just like living in masculine energy. That was like, it is a conscious daily battle of like, no, 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 no. We're gonna have some of that feminine energy come in.
Thank you so much for asking that question. And also let me clarify that all of us have both a blend of feminine and masculine energy within us. So when I say the masculine or the feminine, I'm not saying like this is solely reserved for females and this is for males and this is for people who identify here and there. No, like we all have a balance. And look, I could, I'm going to keep this concise, but for your listeners who are obviously brand new to me, I also have a background in yoga, you know, like a lot of yogic wisdom and nervous system science, etc. And in yoga, we call these two energies Shiva and Shakti. So think of it as your yin and yang. Think of it as your sun and moon. And effectively, your feminine energy is more of your inward, your reflective, your intuitive, your restful, that sort of inner knowing with a capital K, let's call it. And the masculine is more sort of the power, the go, the sun, you know, the active, let's do it. And unfortunately, you know, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that we live in a linear masculine dominated productivity paradigm where it's like every day is input output and we're expected to just produce the same every single day. Unfortunately, that's not how human beings are wired. Doesn't matter what gender, you know, you were born or identify with. It's just not how humans work. Look at all of nature.
Yeah.
Nature goes through all of these seasons. The moon goes through these phases. And so when I speak about bringing the balance, the sacred balance of the feminine and masculine, it's about letting them dance and interplay with one another. Because yes, we do have a lot of people, especially high achievers, who tend to over dominate in the masculine side by nature. And we also have a fair chunk of the population who tend to over dominate in the feminine side. And, you know, that can manifest as things like apathy or boredom or this sort of like wishy-washy, I'm just going to manifest my dreams and it's going to happen. and both of these have a role, but they do need to interplay and interweave. And so that's sort of the Cliff's Notes of what could be a whole long conversation.
Yeah, that's perfect, and I think it'll clarify for some, and even, you know, maybe some ahas are happening. People are listening. So I want to ask you about the health thing. How, like, I know you said rashes started manifesting on you. Tell us more about your healing journey, because it's funny, Denise and I get very spiritual in this podcast, and we don't talk a lot about clinical. And I don't want to get all clinical. What things did you try? But I'm curious because I want people to see that there is very much a connection. It's not just, oh, this rash appeared and it was a high histamine diet I was eating and I just, you know, that fixed it. Yeah. Like how did this unfold for you?
Oh my gosh, this is such an incredible question because, you know, I also want to cast your mind back to the year 2023. This is like high achiever Victoria, who was still completely in her 3D world paradigm, like totally unaware. I was still starting to tap into it, but I was very much still in the 3D matrix reality. And how this happened was, I, as many of us, probably a lot of your listeners as well, have a relatively complex dynamic with some people in my family.
I don't know what you're talking about. My family,
what do you mean?
Like rainbows.
So, you know, I'm sure you speak about stress on the podcast. That's a big stressor. And there's a lot of, you know, sort of trauma and internalized, unprocessed stuff that's already sort of in the system. And I was doing the therapy, but it was still all pretty surface level. And so I vividly remember the very first time that I had the tiniest 1% smidge of this rash show up. And it was when I got a phone call about a family member having fallen, and basically they were in a coma. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. This is family member, someone I have a really challenging dynamic with as well. So that kind of elevated some things. And I didn't even put two and two together. It was like my eyes were puffy that next day. I was like, maybe it was something I ate. Maybe it was the histamine.
Histamine.
And then I didn't think about it. And then a few weeks later, things sort of escalated to the point where I traveled to Europe and was sort of, imagine being faced with all of your childhood trauma in like a really stressful container of hospitals and surgeries and, someone whose skull is like missing. So you're literally, it was quite horrific. So it was stress overload to the point. It was not just the situation in itself, but it was also all the childhood stuff it was bringing up. And, this is a sensitive topic, but I feel it's important to name out loud, is that I was also confronted with my abuser at the time. I was, traveled back to my childhood home that I hadn't visited in 15 years. And being the high achiever that I am, I was also still working through that entire time. And for those of you who kind of, don't know Europe and New Zealand on the map, opposite ends of the world, I was working up till midnight, to just meet time zones and be available for some meetings. So that, as you can imagine, was a really great prerequisite to the flare-up. And again, poor little unconscious me did not realize any of this. It manifested as puffy skin. It then got worse to the point where I felt like my face was literally on fire. Mm-hmm. I was oozing pus from my neck. And the worst part is that I was in Switzerland, in hospitals and in clinics, and I was not being taken care of. So imagine that deep inner child wound as well of like, here I am, no one's taking care of me. I have to fix this myself. And I thought, oh, it was something I ate, or maybe it was this cream that I used or whatever, or it's the humidity because the air is so dry in Switzerland and my skin is so sensitive. And then long story short, I traveled back to New Zealand, thought it would all go away. And I already had that little like inkling that it had something psychosomatic at hand. But I think I just wasn't ready to see it then. Yeah. So all the specialists, Kira, I went to everyone. I went to the GP. I went to the immunologist. I had the little, patch test done of like what food allergies. They even did like the back test of like, is it specific creams? Went to a dermatologist. No one had an answer. No one. They were baffled. They're like, we have no idea what's going on. And it wasn't until I took things into my own hands and went kind of down the alternative route, working with a naturopath, working with a traditional Chinese medicine specialist, it all started to unfold. And interestingly, that's also when I learned about the nature of cycles and, the whole female paradigm started to come a little bit more into my life. And that actually played a big part in my healing journey. So it's a big story. Yeah.
When did you realize, like, was it during this insane rash that you were like, maybe I should slow down? Like, where was the burnout in this?
I would say it was like a low grade, slow, ongoing burnout. So it was, contrary to what you might see in like popularized in the media or in social media where you're just like, ugh, everything sucks. It was just like really slow. And it was like that little whisper. And there were a few specific moments that were a big wake-up call. One was, again, same family members. I went back a few months later to visit them and kind of help take care. At that point, I was already seeing my acupuncturist, and I was like, it was under maintenance. I wouldn't say that I had healed myself, but I was already getting so much better, and I had a lot of practices. And yet, 4 days, I reached the absolute lowest of my lows mentally, like to the point where I vividly remember walking down the beach and being like, oh, wouldn't it be nice to just like walk in and not come back out of the ocean? And that was the like wake up, like, shit. Sorry, I don't know if I'm
we
to...
heard
Okay. I was like, shit. Okay, this isn't good. And to be honest, it wasn't so much the work. It was more all the childhood stuff that then I realized I was trying to please my parents and all these people in my family, which is the sole reason why I was chasing all these
Yeah.
big corporate roles in the first place. So it's sort of like there wasn't one specific event. It all started to connect. And in that space, like of healing and rediscovering myself, I started to reconnect with some of my passions and I was like, started to remember who I was again. And I was like, who am I doing this for? Why am I grinding so hard? And as I started to reconnect with that feminine side of me, I was like, whoa, there's another way to do this. And so the slowing down came naturally. And yet, because I'm an achiever, I was like, I didn't want to sacrifice my success and my productivity. And like, I found the way to have both. And that was a really cool aha realization of like, oh, holy moly, I'm getting so much more done than I was before. And I feel so much better now and so much healthier and so much more complete than I was previously. So it was like I cracked the code.
Well, and it's funny, you said something that has been so profound in my own healing journey. And I'm not talking physical anymore. And I think it's so important for anyone is who are we trying to please, right? We're in this, I mentioned again, like type A, perfectionistic, because that's me. But why am I, who am I trying to be perfect for? Myself? Like, why am I trying to achieve these grand goals? Why is there a number on, oh, when I've made it, who is that for? And I don't
Yeah.
think many people ask themselves that question. And when you do, oh my gosh, it's powerful because it's like, wait, that's not for me. That's for my parents. That's for society. That's for the person that told me in sixth grade I wasn't good enough. Like,
Yeah.
much can come from that.
Yeah, exactly. And so many people are walking around life blindfolded, just chasing some arbitrary goal or dream, burning themselves out in the process when they don't even know why or for what. And it's completely misaligned with the depth of what they truly want for themselves.
Yeah, like you're living for someone else entirely. You're not living for you. And that itself is a recipe for physical,
Yeah.
issues.
Yes, yeah. And it is heartbreaking because, I genuinely, and this is why I do what I do, it's like I am so, having witnessed this for myself and also not for so many people, I'm like, imagine the world that we get to live in when every single human being gets to tap into their innermost purpose and potential and do what they came here to do in a way that's easy and feels amazing, and they are thriving and also get to do the things they love outside of that while they're at it. Like, isn't that the dream?
Yeah,
And isn't that like our human birthright? Like, isn't that why we're here?
I know. But many don't get to that. Like Denise and I have talked about it and you mentioned 3D, but it's like they're walking around in a haze. I'm like, but you're here for something greater. Like you're not here to just punch your time card and go home and be like, I guess I'm doing it again tomorrow and living for the weekends. Like, no.
Yeah. And even then, like, what are the weekends? Like Netflix and
Exactly.
chill. And that's why, like, despite the depth of sorrow that I had to kind of go into, I genuinely believe that for some people like myself, that's what it takes for you to snap out of that 3D walking around blindfolded, and it's like we often speak about how the universe or life or whatever you want to call it will give you little clues and little whispers, and you don't listen to that, it's the little nudge, and you don't listen to that, it's the little slap, and if you don't listen to that, for me it took a massive shake up to truly realize it. And so in a way I see that as a blessing, and I'm really grateful for that time in my life because I love the person who I've become as a result, and I genuinely believe that your listeners are likely already on that path. I feel like there's got to be some part of you that's starting to realize that there's more to life than this, that you don't just need to be miserable all the time. And then it's just a matter of how and who's the right person to help you on that journey. Because I don't know about you, but my path was pretty lonely, and that was hard. That was probably the hardest piece when you're like starting to break out of the matrix, and you're like,
Am I
is it just
alone?
me?
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, what?
there are so many of us, and that's why even the podcasts like this exist. Like there are so many.
Yeah.
And I love the
Yeah.
synchronicity. So I don't know when this is going to air. So guys, I don't know what day
Hmm.
this is when you're listening, but I can say that our episode that just released yesterday, so
Hmm.
funny. We were talking about like physical symptoms and how,
Hmm.
like you get the whispers, but also my living situation and how little hints had been
Mm.
dropped and then they got louder and louder and then there's a sewage flood. Like it's the same thing. Like you have
Exactly.
clues all around you, but pay attention. And
Yeah, and it's so interesting you say that because like just before we started recording and you were giving me the context to like your living situation, that was the first
oh,
thought in the back of my mind. I was like, what's life trying to tell her?
still asking myself that, but I'm like, it's okay. Like
You'll figure it
sometimes
out.
the lessons and the answers come much later.
That's it. That's it. And also you never know like why there could be
Exactly.
greater things at play there.
That's what I'm counting on. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, so success for you years ago, or, the 2023 version of you was like, do all the
Mm.
things. What does success look like for you now?
Oh, I love that question. Mm. The word that's coming to mind is wholeness. Not balance, but wholeness, completeness. It is waking up in the morning and first of all having spaciousness, like and just enjoying the morning rather than the 23 version of me like get up, snooze the alarm, go to the gym, force myself to train for a marathon that I was running for the wrong reasons, all that sort of stuff. Like, oh God, that's so sad. Um, so now it's really that spaciousness, wholeness, alignment to my purpose, and knowing that no matter how big or small the progress, the steps that I take, that they are moving me in the direction of where I'm going, and that it is serving something bigger than just myself. And that is really exciting. I think for anyone listening to this podcast right now, if you are unsure of what that version of success that I'm describing right now feels like, it's when you feel lit up. Is that feeling when you feel energized without the coffee? Is that feeling when you are so excited for the day ahead? Like, I mean, like this podcast, right? Talking about this right now. Like, I'm going to be recording an episode after this. I'm like, I could talk about this for days. That's your green flag. And it becomes very, very obvious when you're not in that space, because if you're feeling heavy and like you're trying to push through and like you're trying to rely on motivation to get through the day, chances are something somewhere is out of alignment. So for me, to answer your question, what success looks like, it is wholeness, it is spaciousness, it is alignment, it is purpose, and just pure life force energy.
I love that. Okay, well, is there anything we did not talk about that you feel like our listeners need to hear, or that you're like, I'm
Ooh,
dying to
yes.
tell people this?
Yes, there is actually.
There
Thank
is.
you.
Okay, good.
There is one thing, and I'll keep it, I'll keep it point. But just taking it back to what we spoke about, the feminine and the masculine energies, and balancing that, and that now specifically getting into like the real tangibility of productivity and planning and your work, right? Because it's all great to be like, yeah, I want to feel amazing, but I got bills to pay.
Right.
So it's like, I know we're still in this 3D reality for now. So, the thing that honestly changed everything for me was when I stopped operating in this masculine dominated linear input output paradigm and learned how to use cycles, and specifically the cycles of success in my productivity and planning. And when I say this, if you've got like male or non-cycling listeners right now and they're tuning out, I'm going to say, no, I'm not talking just about the female cycle, but I'm talking about all of nature's cycles, which also apply to all of your work, all of your projects. Everything has a cycle, and you get to honor every single phase. You don't just need to push through and grind and celebrate, like the spring summer equivalents of your projects. There is a specific role that the autumn and winter components play, and they're actually, the more you honor them, the more productive you become in the whole process, but the more action and energy becomes available to you in those peak energy times as well. So again, this is obviously just scratching the surface on something really, really broad, but I just wanted to leave you with this, that especially for, the women listening here who also have that influence of their physical cycle, you're menstruating and you're like, why am I so exhausted and I don't feel like I can do anything and I just want to stay in bed all day? And then my achievers will be like, what's wrong with me? I was so productive 2 weeks ago and now I'm not getting anything done. It's like, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just a part of the natural cycle. So stop judging yourself, stop shaming yourself. Just let yourself be in that moment, and that too will pass. And there's a way you can plan around it. But I just wanted to leave your listeners with that nugget because it changed my life.
Yeah, I think that can be profound, and we don't pay enough attention to our cycles, but I'm always amazed when I have clients that come to work with me and they're like, can you tell me about my cycle? Because it has actually never been explained to them. And like, I'm not a hormone expert, but I'm like, they really didn't teach us this in school, did they? And like, I don't remember my mom sitting down and being like, this is your follicular. This is, you know what I mean? Like explaining that. So
the first time I learned about it was from my naturopath on that whole healing trajectory. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
How do I not know this?
Yeah.
Women are like in menopause, like they go through menopause, they go through their entire life not knowing this.
I know.
So
Crazy.
find your person.
Yeah.
Learn about your body, and whether also if you are not cycling or you are male, the same principle applies to you, because you will also have seasons in your life where the energy is a little bit lower, the productivity is a bit lower. And it's just a matter of knowing, is that because I'm burnt out and flat, or because that's just a natural part of the season that I'm in?
Yeah. And it's
Art
okay.
and science. Yeah.
Well, for people that want to learn more about you, listen to you, find you on social, where can they go?
They can find me everywhere. Everywhere you look. So the best place, if you just want to like engage with me directly, is probably on socials. So Instagram, I'm on all the things: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, whatever. It's all just my name, Viktoria Levenberg. And I also host a podcast called Resonance, where Kira was just recently a guest on it as well. We can maybe even link that up in the show notes for those who might want to hear kind of Kira's story. And aside from that, you can find me on my website, victorialevenberg.com. I've got a few freebies floating around there, so depending on what you're in for, if you're into like the mindfulness space, or if you're into the planning and productivity space, if you're like, I think I'm a type A achiever, but I'm not sure, I have a really cool quiz that's like the achievement archetypes quiz that will give you the answer. So there's plenty there for you. But if you just want to chat, just DM me on any of the socials, and I'm in the inbox and would love to answer any questions or just connect for fun and giggles.
Awesome. Thank you. And guys, this will all be in the show notes, so don't worry, just look below. Well, it was so wonderful having you on. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me, Kira, in your Airbnb, in your new studio apartment. And I'm just so grateful for our connection. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week. And thank you for listening to this podcast.
Yes. All right, guys, we will see you on the next episode.